Hi everyone, welcome back to Azure DevOps learning series. In the last session, we have learned about the jobs and stages to be defined onto the Azure DevOps pipeline. Also, in past few sessions, we have learned about the basic of YAML file, how to define a variable, the different type of variables, also the jobs and stages. Today, we are going to be get all of those learning to be implemented onto a real world example by taking one of the small program of C sharp, and we'll see how we can do the build of that C sharp code. If you can see on the repo, I have put some sample code. Here you can see there is one code with the CS project file, and there is few test cases, also a test project followed by a solution file. Okay, now how we can do the build of this C sharp program which has been written onto a .NET framework, and how we can see that with the help of the CI pipeline we will publish the artifact. Okay, let's see. Now you can see I will explain all those different task and the different settings that has been done on the YAML file so that you will be get it easily. So right now, if you can see, I have set it up the trigger as none because I want this to be executed manually rather than auto trigger for now. Then I have selected as a pool where the VM image is window latest. It means that I'm going to use for this particular example a Microsoft Azure based agent, not my own defined agent. Third, I've defined few variables which has been used further for a different task to build the C sharp project, where the solution file has been passed as one of the input parameter followed by the other configuration needed for the build. Now, as the code has been written onto a .NET framework, we need that to be restored and build using the NuGet. Here, our first task is to get the NuGet tool installer, which is been needed for the framework perspective, that we need to be get the NuGet tool installer, followed by a restore of my complete code base using the NuGet command restore. Once the code has been restored, then it needs to be built. So I've used the VS build, which is Visual Studio build. That needs to be done by passing all the parameters that is needed to build the code. Once the code has been built, I want my test cases also to be executed. So in order to execute the Visual Studio test cases, this is a task that needs to be used. Followed by, if you remember on the last session example, we talked about few of the bash shell. So if I want to be use the bash, I have used it in a way that I define a task which is of the bash type and then passes all the inline query that I want to be execute. Okay. Followed by, once my build has been done, once the testing has been completed, I want the output of my build to be published as an artifact so that I can download it, I can verify it, and I can use it further for my deployment pipeline. And I have just asked another task at the end in order to show you that if there is few multiple other activities that needs to be done, you can add such type of task as well, where here the example is to execute the PowerShell scripts, or if there is any Python script, anything, you can add it out and you can execute as part of your pipeline. Now this is a way to write a YAML file for a real world C sharp example and an automated test cases written for a C sharp code base. Now let's go to the pipeline and execute this YAML file. So if I can go and execute with the main branch, let's trigger this one. And once, as soon as this has been done, you can see within the stage, I have a job written, which are our steps. When there is a direct step mentioned, it means it's only a single job under a single stage. There is no multiple stage, as we discussed in our last session. Now you can see what all different task that has been defined for our YAML or a CI pipeline. You can see one by one those tasks are going to be executed, which is taking over code base, the C# code base solution file, and in order to build it, followed by to do the testing of the build that has been done. And once this has two steps has been passed upon, if it is successful, it will do the publishment of the artifacts. So we will see once the pipeline get over. Now you can see it has been done. The test case is also been passed it out. There is no issue. Both the test case has been passed out and it has published my artifact. So let's see, once this has been done and the publishment has been done, where you can go and see the publish file for a pipeline. We use the pipeline artifact, not an Azure based artifact tree yet. We will do it in our upcoming session, that how to use the Azure based artifact tree to store your artifact for as and when you need it later on. But for now, as in pipeline artifact, once we publish, you can see there is one published artifact is available. So if you click on this option, you will see with the name drop that has been mentioned on the pipeline, all the file that has been published is been available right here. And later on, when we will learn about the deployment pipeline, we will see how we can utilize these artifacts to our deployment pipeline. Before we can conclude, I will show you one more task which is pretty good for Azure DevOps to make sure that how the Azure DevOps is user friendly in order to create our CI/CD pipeline. So you can see here I have added the Visual Studio steps. But if you want to write it from the scratch, you just need to be look onto this right side taskbar, and whatever that you want to be added as part of the task, you can search it out. Take an example, I want to be add a bash. Just select search for the bash, select the bash, define these configuration that okay, I want to do some inline queries rather than this, and then mention your inline query. That's it. You have, if you want to be add few more environment things, that is fine. If not, still it is okay and add it. You can see the task has been created automatically. I no need to be write it down, not to be worried about the syntax. Everything has been done automatically. This is the beauty of Azure DevOps CI/CD. While creating a pipeline, you will see lot of tasks that is been available, and you can use all those tasks as and when needed. Okay, so that's all for today's session. On the upcoming session, we will learn more real world example. We will learn how to use the Azure DevOps, all these tasks for different type of code that you want to be built and you want to be deployed for your application. Thank you so much.